What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. So, as per the title below, learning to fight won't make you into a better man or won't make you more manly or more masculine. Now, I wanted to touch on this because if you are like me and you're into self-improvement content, you're gonna get quite a bit of recommendations on your YouTube feed, on other social media feed, talking about how if you join an MMA club or a boxing club or just pursue any sort of fighting sport, also like jiu-jitsu, it will help you become more masculine and manly. And I'm here to tell you that that is not the case, and it is the most unsubstantiated claim ever. And I'm not really sure why it is circulating around so aggressively. Everybody seems to be touching on it and saying that, hey, you want to become a better man, you want to become more masculine, go learn to fight. And I'll tell you why this doesn't work. Now, the approach of fighting that's pursued in a lot of the MMA gyms, boxing gyms, or jiu-jitsu gyms, or kickboxing, or Muay Thai is based a lot on the physicality, meaning that you're going through routines and drills, okay? So you're doing these exercises basically to train in the martial art form you're pursuing and basically build out your cardio also, and possibly a bit of weightlifting if the fighting gym you're in has a weights room. Now, part of that also is that you are going to spar, and this sparring is happening with quite a bit of safety gear in a controlled environment where basically there's a referee that will stop a fight if it goes out of hand, and basically, you are safe. Now, why do I say that all of this does not help you become a better man? Very simple. All of these things are outer aspects, okay? When people recommend going to fighting gyms to become a better man, they are implying that if you go and do a fighting sport, that internally you're gonna have what's needed to be a man and develop that internal masculine fortitude and frame. But that's not what happens in fighting gyms, okay? Fighting gyms focus more on the physical side of things. They don't focus on the psychological. If you happen to develop your psychology within a fighting gym, it's not because of a structured routine or any lessons you've picked up. It just happens to be a subjective individual experience that you went through. Majority of people that go to fighting gyms do not develop the psychological side or the internal frame that's needed. And a good example of that is a lot of people that will fight in gyms and even go to compete and be, let's say, amateur or pro fighters. When they are out on the real world, you can still see in them the same insecurities and the same mental weaknesses and the lack of confidence you see in an average guy, except now it is dangerous because you have this insecure, confidence lacking guy who is basically physically trained in hurting somebody. And this I've seen so many times with a lot of guys that do MMA or boxing in particular, especially with the uptick because of social media in terms of MMA and boxing. A lot of the younger guys are going into these gyms because it's basically the cool, trendy thing right now. If you fight, you're a man. If you fight, girls like guys that inflict pain on other guys or violence. The problem with this is, like I said, a lot of these guys are going to the gyms, learning the physicality, but they don't have really what they went in for, which is basically building this masculine frame and basically developing themselves as men. And there's this presumption that if you do martial arts, it's gonna by default make you into a better man, which is not the case at all. Martial arts are gonna be like anything else, like money or steroids or fame or status. It basically magnifies what you are already. So if you're somebody who's an asshole and you go do martial arts, now you're an extremely dangerous asshole. If you're somebody that's kind and loving and stands up for bullies, now you have the capacity to stand up for bullies on a physical level. So as you can see from these examples, just doing martial arts or joining an MMA or boxing or jiu-jitsu gym will not do it in terms of turning a boy into a man or taking a male and making him into a man or a better man. Okay, there has to be this psychological aspect to it. There has to be this inner work side of it, and this is not taught or covered in a lot of these gyms. If anything, a lot of these gyms now are more commercialized, so it's basically more of a playful way to go in and get your exercise while, training in self-defense and picking up a martial art. And when you do go into the serious gyms that put out competitors, the problem with the competition models that a lot of these gyms run on is that it just, again, runs on envy and jealousy. You're basically in there having to stand up for yourself. Even when there are coaches around, you basically have to fend for yourself. You're not really taught any lessons on psychology. You are not taught how to remain calm under pressure. It's presumed that you're gonna develop these qualities when you're thrown into, the water. And for a lot of, well, not a lot, but for quite a bit of people, that will happen. But that has more to do with their natural aptitude and temperament. But for quite a lot of people, that is not the case. And like I mentioned earlier, if going into a gym is meant, for example, to humble you and make you really grounded in yourself as a man, for somebody that's already insecure or paranoid or narcissistic, that's not going to happen. If anything, it's going to make them more vicious. So this is one side of it that I disagree with. The recommendation for just, to turn boys and men into more masculine people, to just go into the fighting gyms. There is no guarantee, nor is it actually a thing, that being in a fighting gym will develop these qualities. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is the lie that if you learn how to box or if you learn MMA, you can defend yourself and loved ones on the streets. And man, is that far from the truth. Now, does it help? Sure. But the reality is there's a difference between fight, play training in a controlled, safe environment with rules versus uncontrolled, savage, malicious, and often caught by surprise violence on the streets. Those two are very, very different. And if you spend enough time on YouTube, I'm quite sure you've at least come through one or two clips of professional MMA fighters in UFC or even boxers getting knocked out by bouncers in bars and clubs, or basically subdued by bouncers or normal dudes in the street. And this comes as no surprise to me. You have to understand that when it comes to violence, there's no structure, there's no drilled patterns like a lot of these fighters do. Basically, there's no gradual escalation like happens in basically professional fights. It's just pure, sheer, animalistic, violence, like taken with whatever means or cost possible. And it's not the same at all. Now, obviously, if you are trained, you do have a bit of an edge over the average Joe, but still, it doesn't really protect you in the streets. And the other part that's really scary is that idea that you become tougher from fighting. Actually, fighting doesn't make you tougher, especially if you get knocked out or hit in the head multiple times. You know that a lot of professional fighters become chinny. So what happens is if you get hit on the chin multiple times and you have nerves here, and one of the things that happens is that when a brute force impact hits you around any of these nerves, you get knocked out. But what nobody tells you, and particularly for these, fighting gyms and whatnot, is that if you get hit repeatedly in that area, what happens is your brain starts shutting you down quicker. Meaning that if you keep getting hit in the head or the chin, initially it takes a while for you to get knocked out. But as time goes by and you're exposed to this trauma, your brain starts to shut you down faster, meaning knocks you out faster, even with less and less pressure. And the reason your brain is doing that is trying to preserve you by making you lose the fight, right? You're being exposed to frequent physical trauma to the head, and your brain, simply as a survival tactic, is making you submit by taking you out of the fight. So that's another thing about fighting, really, when it comes to self-defense. It's a horrible idea, especially if you're competitive and you get hit in the head a lot. It's really a bad thing to be exposed to that in the street after being a pro fighter, because then your capacity to actually take trauma to the head is decreased. Not that I would recommend it in the first place, but you actually become more sensitive to physical pressure around the nerves in your face and head, and your spine also, right? So, and that's just, we're talking the nerves and the spine, never mind the brain starts also to shut down the more trauma and the more it shakes within your skull. So it actually makes you more vulnerable when you actually are exposed to real violence in real life situations, if you have received quite a bit of trauma to the head. So these are the two misconceptions around really the advice for men to go learn to fight. Obviously, it's a good idea to learn how to throw a punch, right, or a takedown to a certain extent. But this idea that it's going to make you into a better man, or that you're going to be able to protect yourself or your loved ones, that is misleading, okay? 100% misleading. Around true, pure violence, doesn't matter how good your punch or your takedown is. And not even to mention, it's very easy for somebody just to basically draw out a gun at you or use a knife, and it's a lose-lose situation. Two better skills to learn, especially in this day and age, is one, the ability to de-escalate and have a calm conversation, okay? 9 times out of 10, That's gonna get you out of the problem that you're dealing with. Okay. Secondly, have better cardio and learn to run. Always, always, if you have the option to get out of trouble, run. Don't stand there and confront, put your ego aside. Unless you have to protect a loved one or a family member, don't take the risk, okay? Your ego will get you into more trouble here than you can handle. So that's it for this upload, really. This is what I wanted to share just because it keeps popping up. Go learn to fight. Go learn to fight. You become a better man. Listen, you become a better man by having the internal capacity to be a man in the first place. Again, like I said, fighting is going to make you more of what you are. But it's not going to actually help you cultivate that manly quality you need. That starts before you even get into a fighting gym. So, with that said, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. If you guys enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, turn on the bell notification button so you are aware when I do upload. I also do have a Calendly link in the description for those of you that are interested in working one-on-one with me on self-improvement concepts such as this. And with that said, I'm going to wrap it up here. As per usual, very much appreciate your time and attention, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.